Envy for her 8-year-old niece drove my sister to do something that required police and court intervention. It began with a phone call that sliced through my quarterly presentation like a blade. I was standing in a sterile boardroom, pointing at a graph, when my phone vibrated with the school's number. "Mrs. Brennan," Principal Hoffman's voice was tight, strained. "You need to come to Westfield Elementary now." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What is it? Is Emma okay?" There was a pause. "She's not physically injured, but there's been an incident with your sister." The name hung in the air. Jessica. My sister, the third-grade teacher at my daughter's school. I mumbled an apology to 15 confused executives and ran. The 10-minute drive felt like an eternity. When I burst into the main office, a sound hit me, a raw, animal wail of grief that could only come from a child. It was Emma. I found her huddled in the nurse's office, wrapped in a blanket, her body shaking with violent sobs. Her beautiful waist-long auburn hair, the hair she'd been growing since she was 3, was gone. Not just cut, but butchered. Hacked away in jagged chunks, with some patches sheared down to the scalp. It looked like an act of violence. "Who did this?" My voice was a deadly whisper. Emma looked up, her eyes swollen and terrified. "Aunt Jessica," she choked out. "She said I didn't deserve the part. She said Lily wanted it more." My blood turned to ice. My sister Jessica's daughter, Lily, was in Emma's class. They had both auditioned for the lead role in the school's production of Alice in Wonderland. Emma, with her natural stage presence and long, flowing hair, had won the part. Jessica had been furious, but I thought it was just petty jealousy. I had never imagined this. The principal, his face pale, explained that Jessica had lured Emma into her empty classroom during recess, locked the door, and used a pair of large craft scissors on her head. As I held my trembling daughter, my phone rang. It was my mother. The principal must have called her. "Natalie, thank God," she said, her voice frantic. "I'm on my way with your father. Don't do anything rash. Don't call anyone. We can handle this as a family." A choice solidified in my gut, hard and cold as stone. I could protect my sister's career and keep the family peace, or I could protect my daughter. As my parents rushed through the door, their faces a mask of concern for the wrong person, I looked at Emma's devastated face in my arms. The choice wasn't a choice at all. My mother reached for me, pleading, "Natalie, please, she's your sister, she just snapped." I pulled my phone from my pocket, my thumb hovering over the call button for the police. My mother saw it and her face hardened. "If you make that call," she hissed, her voice low and venomous, "you will destroy this family, and you will no longer be our daughter." I made the call. Right there in the sterile nurse's office, with my parents staring at me as if I were a traitor. The betrayal in their eyes was a physical blow, but the sight of Emma's shorn head was a wound far deeper. The police arrived, calm and professional, their presence turning our family matter into a crime scene. Jessica was escorted from her classroom, her face a mixture of shock and indignation, not remorse. She wouldn't even look at Emma. That night, the war began. My phone became a weapon used against me. "How could you do this to your own sister?" My father's voice boomed. "You've ruined her life over a haircut." My mother was worse. "Lily is being tormented at school now. They're calling her mother a monster. Is that what you wanted, Natalie? To make an 8-year-old suffer?" Every conversation was a spiral of gaslighting. They twisted my actions, painting me as a vindictive, dramatic monster who had used a sledgehammer to crack a nut. My daughter wasn't the victim. She was a provocateur whose success had pushed poor Jessica over the edge. I felt myself shrinking, the isolation a suffocating blanket. Late at night, staring at the ceiling, their words echoed in my head. Was it just hair? Did I overreact? The pressure was immense, a physical weight on my chest. I started avoiding public places, terrified of running into someone who had heard their side of the story. The school board scheduled a preliminary hearing, and Jessica arrived with a union lawyer who skillfully framed the assault as a momentary lapse in judgment due to extreme personal stress. It started to look like she might get away with a slap on the wrist, a temporary suspension. My fall reached its nadir when a courier delivered a letter. It was from a lawyer, formally retained by my parents. It was a cease and desist letter, demanding I withdraw my police report and public statements to mitigate the ongoing damages to the family name. They were threatening their own daughter with legal action to protect the one who had assaulted their granddaughter. I was completely, utterly alone. Just as I was about to break, an email appeared in my inbox from a name I barely recognized. Carla, the mother of a boy named Michael from Emma's class. "I heard what happened," she wrote. "I think I need to talk to you. Something similar happened to my son 2 years ago." We met for coffee, and her story sent a chill down my spine. Her son, Michael, had been a spelling prodigy. He had beaten Lily in the school spelling bee and was favored to win the regional championship. The day after the school bee, during recess, Michael had a playground accident and broke his wrist. He couldn't compete. The teacher on playground duty that day? Jessica. At the time, it seemed like a tragic accident. Now, it felt like a blueprint. This was not a momentary lapse. This was a pattern. A surge of adrenaline shot through me. This changed everything. It wasn't just my word against hers anymore. I took this information to the school district, believing it was the smoking gun that would end it all. The superintendent listened with a grave expression but remained non-committal, muttering about due process. For a fleeting moment, I felt a flicker of hope. I thought I had found the way to win. But I had underestimated the depths of my family's treachery. At the next school board hearing, Jessica's lawyer used my move against me. He presented my conversation with Carla as proof of a vindictive and calculated smear campaign. He argued that I was a hysterical mother, maliciously digging up old, unrelated playground incidents to destroy a dedicated teacher's reputation. My parents sat in the front row, nodding in agreement. They had told the lawyer I was unstable, that I had always been jealous of Jessica. I was no longer the victim's mother. I was the villain. I had walked right into their trap. And now, in the eyes of the board, I was not only wrong, but I was also a liar. I sat there, discredited and humiliated, in the lowest, darkest moment of my life. I went home defeated. The hearing was in 2 days, and it felt like Jessica was going to win. As I sat on the living room floor, surrounded by legal papers that felt like gibberish, I watched Emma. She was in her room, quietly reading her lines for the play, her pixie cut a stark, constant reminder of the trauma. She was still going to be Alice. The director had insisted, saying, "Alice goes through many strange changes in Wonderland. This fits." And in that moment, watching her quiet resilience, I had my prostration. I had been so focused on fighting against Jessica, on punishing her. I realized my focus was wrong. I needed to fight for Emma, and for every other child who had been a victim of my sister's ambition. My choice from that first day became crystal clear. I changed my strategy. Instead of battling the bureaucracy, I went public. I created a private Facebook group for parents at Westfield Elementary. I wrote out our story, sticking only to the indisputable facts, and posted the horrifying pictures of Emma's hair. Then, I invited Carla to share her story about Michael's broken wrist. Within an hour, another parent, James, posted about his daughter's award-winning art portfolio that had mysteriously vanished from Jessica's locked classroom right before a competition Lily was also in. The group exploded. The story went from a private forum to the local news in less than 24 hours. The school board meeting was no longer a quiet administrative hearing. It was a media circus, the room packed with furious parents holding signs. The board could no longer hide behind due process. Faced with a dozen other credible stories and overwhelming public outrage, Jessica's defense crumbled. She was terminated immediately, and her teaching license was referred for permanent revocation. The criminal trial was swift. With other parents testifying to her pattern of behavior, she was found guilty of assault, given 18 months of probation, and a permanent restraining order. My parents didn't speak to me through any of it. They sat behind Jessica in court, 2 stone statues of misplaced loyalty. After the verdict, my father looked at me from across the courtroom and mouthed the word, "monster." I simply nodded. On opening night, Emma was radiant. Her short hair sparkled under the stage lights, her confidence a beacon. She had transformed her pain into power. As the crowd gave a standing ovation, I saw my parents slipping out the back, their faces pale. They had lost. We had won. Envy had driven my sister to violence, but a mother's love had driven me to war. And unlike her envy, my love for my child was a thing that could never be broken.